welcome to Project Management in the Age of Python, Embrace the Code. I know some of you who are attending have personally expressed interest previously at taking the red pill. I actually can't remember which one it is in the Matrix, and going down the rabbit hole. So the world will never be the same again. So let's see if we can give today some. Well, we'll introduce ourselves, obviously. We'll try and give a bit of why code, why Python. We will very, very, very briefly just touch on the fact that different types of algorithms exist. And then we're just going to look at some use cases with regards to resource allocation, traveling salesman, and then we're going to use Marvin for a schedule stability, a use case. When we're putting these forwards, there's a few things we want to get across. It's sort of why we would use Python there, why it's useful, but also we want to finish up with sort of how you can go about and get involved as well. So don't worry if it doesn't seem like at the beginning, you may be thinking, hey, I'm a complete newbie to all of this, like, where do I start? We are going to be putting some links in the chat at different times, and they will lead you to different resources. So for example, I have one notebook on the traveling salesman where you can go and see how I've compiled, which libraries I've imported and why and stuff like that. So don't worry if it seems like it might be too much, but in the end we'll get there. So who am I? I'm CDO at Projecting Success, and if you want to find about any of our hacks or anything else or anything about me, then you can scan my QR code. So why am I here today speaking about Python and coding? I haven't got a project background, but I'm a data analytics background or a data background. So I often did degrees in electronic engineering and applied mathematics or computational applied mathematics. I spent many years doing military research, sort of machine learning on supercomputers back in the day before we could do cloud computing. And even when I've had forays into a transform business, I've always been grounded in sensor data and the use of integrating different types of data, which has led perfectly into doing data team transformations in projects. So I'm very much from a data background. I've always been using, well, not always Python, some Java, C, we'll get into that in a bit, but I've always been coding. And I think what's happened with AI in the last few years is that barrier to entry has moved from, or the learning curve has just brought it so much closer, and it's so much more accessible and usable for everybody. Jonah, you tell about yourself.
Hi, yeah, I'm Jonah. I'm a data scientist here at Projecting Success. Been here for about 3 years. I started after completing my master's in maths during COVID. In my day-to-day, I use complex mathematical models to uncover insights to lead decision-making for our company and for external companies. And I also work on LLMs, which large language models, which I'm going to talk about a bit later. And you also might recognize me from some of the hacks where I've been doing tech support.
Fantastic. So we were saying before, why code? And specifically why Python. I've lost all my slides on my screen. Give me a sec. I hope, Jonah, am I on the right slide at the minute?
Yeah, you are.
Perfect. Then I'll just trust that it's there. I can't see it, but I'll go with it. If I remember correctly, I was speaking about versatility, and I think, like, going back to, I've always coded, so I could solve anything I wanted. And it was when I got into using other tool sets years ago that I get frustrated with the limitations. So this is versatile, not just can it do any task, but with some skills in it yourself, you can do almost any task, whether it's web development, data science, with some other mathematical knowledge, whether you want to do some automation or some scripting or more. And it's Python specifically has got a very concise syntax, which makes it easy to read. And it makes it an excellent choice for your first language moving in. So for example, I put it this way to Jonah earlier, I'm a Java baby. So all the input output protocols, it's if I wanted to build a cathedral, sorry, they're a pain in the bottom. If I wanted to, if I'm building a cathedral with my code in Java, I've got to worry about how I'm grouting all of the bricks, how all of that fits together. I've got to go around repointing everything. Whereas in Python, it's more like I draw the outline of the cathedral, I determine what the bricks have to be, and it sort of builds it itself, from my perspective. It's also got extensive library support, so and a lot of open source support. So there's a really rich ecosystem, and there's a really, really, really large community. I think it's the most popular programming language in the world. I think Stack Overflow in 2021 said that 48% of these are all people who do programming, but 48% of people were working with Python. And this massive open source community ensures there's really strong peer support and documentation. So these libraries really help you to build powerful applications efficiently. I think it's the go-to apps. R versus Python was probably a fight a few years ago, but Python is now the go-to language for data science, machine learning, and artificial intelligence. It's got the libraries like Keras to enable you to analyze, and scikit-learn and others to enable you to analyze data, to create predictive models, to build your intelligent applications. For if I remember correctly, it was cross-platform compatibility. It's very portable. It runs on everything. You write your code once and run it anywhere, which is essential for cross-platform development for your business applications. And if you're thinking about it from a job perspective, it's in high demand, whether it's all aspects of business. My last roles were in the burgeoning health tech sector. I've worked in education. I've worked in military research. I've worked in Formula One, and it's basically doing the same thing applied in different areas. So it can open up some really exciting career opportunities. I'm hoping that pressing next slide, it will go to the next slide. So I believe that's resource allocation. So we're trying to link it back to project delivery. So obviously this is something common throughout any project. I've got a finite amount of resources, and I want to use some logic in order to make the best use of them. So obviously linear programming can make sure that the allocation is created so you get the mathematically optimal solution. Using Python, there's many ways out there, there's many tools, but whatever we want to do, we want to simply plug in our resources. We have our costs, we have our constraints, and voila, it's solved. And they're a staple of a project manager's work diet. I think the example, Jonah, do you want to take the example forward for these slides while I find myself?
Sure, yeah. So the example that I've seen before is the example of cranes. So you might have cranes of different heights that can do different tasks, and they might have different costs and different availabilities. So we can plug all of these into Python and connect to them from different data sources. So for example, we might be having our task schedules in Microsoft Project or Primavera. We might have our costs stored in SQL. And the advantages of Python is that we can easily connect to all three of these data sources and plug them in and have live connections, so that once we've got our solution now, we've also got the solution going forward, and we can rerun it later on in the project. So yeah, we would take our data from all of these sources, and then we'd plug it into Python using by setting them as constraints, and then we would use a Python package. I think if you go to the next page, we can see some of the code. Yeah, so we would use pulp to linearly solve this, and then we can be sure that yeah, we know the best way to optimize essentially.
And there's a whole host of different ways you can optimize. So I'm a really big fan of simulation, which is effectively it's inspired by the slow cooling of metals. So the algorithm starts with a random solution to the problem, and it has a variable temperature which starts very high and it gradually gets lower, so it's cooling down. And in each iteration, there's a random number from the current solution which is chosen, and it's changed in a given direction. And the cost is calculated before and after the change, and the two costs are compared. And if a new cost is lower, the solution becomes the current solution. And so just like any other optimization algorithm, yes, this is exactly, I think someone just posted exactly the links we like to use as a good introductory example. I think probably where we got the graph from. So what we want to do, however, is we don't want to get stuck in a local minima. So we have this built into the algorithm. So you don't, so it sometimes throws, even if it's, you see where there's too little false minima there, it's still going to throw cast aside same metrics as you use with recommender system. And the code is that simple. So these things, they're not vast amounts, right? So these algorithms independently don't require vast amounts of code. So what we'll get onto with the notebooks later is how to set it up and how to go about it. But we just want to reiterate at this point, don't worry too much what's in the code, reiterate at this point that it doesn't, and also Joan is going to take you through another way to help you for more creative stuff. But it really don't worry about the complexity now. There's a way in, and it's gonna be fun. So another one, traveling salesman. Why? I think everyone's probably heard of a traveling salesman algorithm. So it's a classic algorithm from computer science and operations research. And I think in the classic one, it's a list of you get like a list of cities, and you're think a 1950s in America traveling salesman who wants to go around the country, and he wants to take, or she, but if it's 1950s America, probably he, but they want to take the shortest possible route, the most efficient route. So what's the quickest way to address all their cost bases? Now, of course, in reality, if you're working for a company, you'll probably have multiple salesmen. You're probably not going to probably have someone focused on the northeastern seaboard, etc. So we do have the MTSP problem. And it's obviously useful in a range of project management situations, such, I've just also, this is an example which I had in real life when I worked at Sports Direct. All of our lorries delivering to all the shops, but also taking returns back. And we had a single DC. So we had logic, which meant that if if someone in Newcastle, an influencer, started promoting a certain brand of shoe, we would be able to have within 48 hours, and often depending on the cutoff time of day, if it's before 11 a.m., 24 hours later, we'd be able to relocate a good proportion of that stock from all over the country to Newcastle, because we know when that influencer in Newcastle promotes something, we get a run on a certain product, on that product. So we were tracking that on Instagram, and then we would be ready. And so there was a crush and a wave, and everyone come buying it. And because we could react 1 to 2 days quicker than all of our rivals, we were riding that wave. We were selling out. There's your very good use case, massive amounts of profit. So typically we're going to have project sites, client locations, completely generic algorithms, and we want to optimize the route to travel between them. And it could be whether you're delivering your, whether it's the Sports Direct delivering trainers, whether it's whatever you're doing between sites, but also something I used to work on. So this is something I did, a real traveling salesman problem that I did in another one I did in real life. And I'll give everyone a minute to try and guess what I could possibly have been using it for here. So if anyone hasn't guessed, this is Jebel Ali in the UAE. And I was specifically working in sort of anti-contraband and anti-people trafficking. So we had a manifest of all containers, a manifest of all ships. We had real-time ship tracking data. And we also had these high-risk containers or ship locations to be checked. And we had multiple drones, so it's a multiple traveling salesman. So we had a priority task to make sure we checked all high-risk containers in the port and on incoming and outgoing ships using our drones. If anyone's interested, because of the classical physics problem, we were using backscatter X-rays for some things, so which was pretty cool. And we had to maximize the percentage of containers that we were able to scan as well. So we had dynamic decision making. So normally traveling salesman's quite greedy. It is greedy. It's only looking at the next best, whereas we weren't doing that. This wasn't a greedy algorithm. So we're actually going to share with you now for your own time later on. There's actually an example. And so I've been saying how you get started. Well, you're going to get a link to a Google Colab notebook, and you can use any kind of sorry, you need a Google account. It's free to use. It's a free tool. And what's great about this is it's a real leveler. So the poorest kid in the poorest country, if their school has a computer with access to the internet, they can go and use Google Colab too. And I think this is a slight segue, but this is a real great opportunity, because the barrier to entry for doing these things has just been leveled so far now that, when I was working on it 20 years ago, you needed access to a supercomputer, and now everyone's got the opportunity to do great things with coding and machine learning. So once you're signed up, you'll find that effectively it's a notebook, and you can run without having to install anything locally. So it's not good for you at work. It's not good for you with your work machines. You're going to have to learn how to install and install your Python, etc. there, and your Anaconda and stuff like that, and your Condas environments. But to get started, it is the place to be, in my opinion. And we're not affiliated. It's just, yeah, great. So, go away afterwards, have a play, and email me any questions. And once a week, I'll try and I'll collate all the questions and I'll get back to you. Jonah.
So that was probably quite a lot of looking at code, and maybe you're not super sure about how we can go about writing code easily. You might not have too much experience with that. So what we've developed is a large language model called Marvin, and we'd like to kind of show off how you can use this to kind of get started in Python. Next slide, please. So what is a large language model? So a large language model is, they're pretty popular at the moment with the rise of ChatGPT and many other alternatives. They're really good at summarizing information, generating context based on the context, generating content based on context that's been provided, and then, has a lot of applications in communications and data processing. The difference with Marvin is that we've trained it on information specifically for project managers and the project delivery domain. This means that Marvin knows specific context around your job, hopefully, and can help you write code better for this kind of applications. And so we've got content from prominent voices and leading organizations in project delivery. Hopefully you find it useful. Next page, please. So if we're comparing to ChatGPT, Marvin has a great knowledge of project delivery language. So if you put in acronyms such as CPM into ChatGPT, it thinks you're talking about clicks per mil, which is a kind of, I think, for tracking how well links are clicked through. It's kind of like a marketing term, whereas Marvin will know that you're talking about critical path method. We've also built a referencing system for Marvin with links to the documents that we've trained it on. So these references are in line, as we'll see in a sec. So if you want to verify the information or read further around it, then you can. If you've ever tried to ask for references from ChatGPT, it can be hit or miss. Definitely, it often invents or hallucinates links which don't work. And with Marvin, we at least know that through our curation that the information is verifiable.
If no one's seen it, check out the US lawyer who used ChatGPT for his research, went to court, and he had a load of made up precedents. And it's hilarious. But next slide, Jonah.
Yes, please. So I'll touch on quickly how this kind of works in terms of having our separate documents. So we use something called a RAG layer, which is a retrieval augmented generation layer. And this is a separate bit of this is basically stores our documents. And so when you ask Marvin a question, it will convert that question into a vector, and it will search the vector store of these documents that we trained it on, and using some algorithms that probably won't get into right now, it finds basically the nearest and most useful documents that are going to answer your question. It then sends it back to the main LLM and says, using these questions, using these sources, answer the question. And so therefore you're using those documents to answer the question, and not just generic, not just the base layer. So what is our document library? So we're working with Adrian Dooley of the Praxis framework, who has carefully curated these documents. So we've got lots of things such as some websites, such as the Praxis website and the GAO schedule and cost guides. We've also been donated some books by some really great authors. And yeah, we've got a lot of publications and papers and case studies of past projects. On that, if you've got any documents that you'd like to add, please get in contact. This is a community bot, and we really think that knowledge should be shared. So if you have something that you think would be useful, please contact me.
I mean, if you've got anything in your company about protocols or anything you think might be useful, it's like standard, and we could have it in there, that'd also be useful. Jonah and my email address will be up at the end, so you don't have to worry now. So,
okay.
do you want to share your screen here, or is it?
Yeah, I'll share my screen.
I'll stop sharing.
So yeah, so this is the Marvin interface for now. I'll touch on the new UI a bit later, but yeah, this is where we're at the moment. So if, say, we wanted to use Marvin to show some of its knowledge, we might start off by asking what are the ways in which a project can be scheduled. This is probably something I mean.
This is always, live demos. It's going to take about 20 seconds probably. So we know that we've allowed enough time. And so with this as well, you might be thinking, well, why are we using this? This is another way that you can help get started. So it's completely open source, completely free. And Jonah's basically going to show you how to address project problems and then take it all the way through to the code and to a solution. Oh, it's already responded. I was still waffling on.
Yeah, so yeah, we've got a nice answer, and from various sources, it's summarized it in a list to make it quite easy to read. We can see the sources, and if we want to read more, for example, in schedule management, we can see from the Praxis website. Yeah, so say we were looking at this and we wanted to explore more the first two, so critical path method and critical chain, and we wanted to maybe have a better understanding of those. We might ask something like, we might ask Marvin to compare the two and then create some visualizations in Python.
Well, I can't see what have you asked it then, Jonah?
Yeah, so I've said, do you think I should, I'll zoom in a bit. So I've said compare CPM to critical chain and create some visualizations in Python to illustrate these concepts. So we will run that. And yeah, hopefully we should be getting some Python code back.
How big yeah, so when we're doing this for demos, we're trying not to use like two big real life data sets, because obviously you'd want to take like 10 minutes to process.
Yeah, so, and in the second demo, I've shortened it. So we're going to use a schedulator. Obviously, the original one was from the hack and had about 50,000 rows. I've shortened it to 10. So yeah, it's so we can run it. But yeah, we've got some code, and we can copy it straight over to VS Code, and hopefully this is going to work.
Always good to everyone cross their fingers. Wow.
Yeah, and it's gone for a Gantt chart, which is not quite as I expected, but we'll roll with it. And then I will show the next one, which is the critical chain method. And we can see how it's implemented some buffers. And I think combined with the answer from Marvin, you can definitely get a better understanding of the two techniques. So yeah, that's the first demo, but hopefully that should show, I guess, maybe.
And you guys can go and play around with this as well, actually. We'll
Yeah,
put a link in the chat at the end, so you can go and see how you can use it for yourselves.
Do you want to reshare your screen? So I can
reshare my screen. Yeah, sorry. My Teams is slow. I've clicked on share. So I think Jonah Marvin right now is faster than Teams. There we go. Teams got insulted and caught up. So the second one's a critical path method, which was actually was this from Rolls-Royce at the hack we just had?
Yeah. So yeah, at the hacks we kind of try and encourage people to maybe think a bit outside the box, do some coding that they wouldn't typically do to tackle a problem. So, for example, yeah, this was challenge 1 from the most recent Sheffield hack.
I think we should probably say that at a hack we're aiming for the kind of ceiling, really pushing the boundaries on what's possible, as opposed to we're not, it's not like the work ready solution with no holes. If we build a boat and it's got a few holes in it, well, we can worry about those later. It's can we build a new design of boat? Can we go from the galleon to the catamaran? And can we skip all the intermediate steps on the way?
Yeah. So yeah, this challenge was about schedule stability and what the factors driving instability. We were provided with a number of data sets, which were the schedules across a 1-year period. And yeah, we were trying to work out if there was a new way of working out yeah, what caused instability. So I will share my screen again. So I'll quickly show you the data set. This is the one that I've shortened, but I think quite a nice way of starting is to actually just copying the headers straight into Marvin, so it understands what we're doing, and then we can create code based on this.
I'm not sure the screen's been is the screen been shared? Can people? Oh, it is appearing now. It might just be my Teams being slow. Yeah, please go ahead. Sorry to interrupt you there. Full flow, Jonah.
That's all right. So if I have a CSV schedule with the following headers, how can I, so the previous example, instead of showing Gantt charts, was meant to show a network diagram, which would explain why I'm now asking it to create a network diagram. But that's not what happened.
Did you have do you have one I made it?
Yes, I do actually.
One I made earlier to show, so it makes sense.
Yeah. So here we had the diagrams it was supposed to produce, which is some network diagrams showing how CPM and critical chain work. So yeah.
I think this is a perfect opportunity to say that when you are using generative AI to help you, so where we are at the minute, we don't yet have a kind of auto QA function to verify things in every field, but that's probably not that far away now because of where we are. So you may find that you need to use your domain knowledge, because when it gets it wrong, it might choose the wrong thing, but what it won't do is miscalculate. So it might choose the wrong type of diagram, but if it's using the right type of diagram, it's not going to be using an incorrect or almost certainly not going to be using incorrect algorithm. So you're safe on the difficult bit, but it's not so good at the bit where your domain knowledge can step in. I think that's quite an important thing to point out, because otherwise people might just be thinking, well, it gets it wrong, why would I use it?
Yeah, I think in reality, using LLMs, there's always a bit of back and forth, troubleshooting, that kind of thing. So yeah, it may not get it right the first time, but if you try hard enough, you can definitely get the result you want.
Top end, I've been using it to spin out whole dashboards from free text analysis. So putting in just normal natural language sentences, asking it questions about a data set, and also where there's some free text, and it's spinning out dashboards. Now, 8 out of 10 aren't very good, but 1 or 2 are actually quite good. And every now and again, 1 in sort of 20 or 30 is amazing. So I just ask it to repeat the process like 30 or 40 times and then go and have a look at them. And, rather than spending a day making a decent dashboard. I spend about 5 minutes asking it to do it, go away, have a cup of tea, pester Jonah about something, and then come back and have a look at what it's done for me. Much quicker, much more relaxing. Sorry, I'll stop interrupting you, Jonah.
Yeah. So what I've done is I've written into the prompt. I've got a CSV of a schedule with the following headers. I've copied in the headers. Then I've said, can you create a network diagram of the schedule, calculating the activities that are on the critical path and visualizing them. And then one thing you can do with networks is there are specific network algorithms that work for them. So I think a nice way of thinking, particularly for a hack challenge, is to see, okay, so how do these algorithms, how can they work on our schedule network? So one of them is centrality. Do you want to quickly touch on, I guess, what centrality is while I run the prompt?
Yeah, sure. So centrality. So there's lots of so when we're thinking about networks, right? Sorry, Jonah, I caught myself out. I'll just let me reset my head for a second. I was sorry. The reason I caught myself out is some people have been asking to access the Colab, and I had the security settings wrong. I've just changed the security settings on the Colab so that now, if you couldn't get on before and you retry, you should be able to get on. So apologies for that.
Well,
I'm just gonna wrap that. I mean, that was I'll get onto centrality in a second. I'm just gonna.
Well, while you're doing that, the prompt's finished, so we can start, and then we'll come back to centrality in a little bit. So we'll start a new notebook and start putting our code in. Right now, we're pointing to the wrong schedule, so I will just copy the link here, put it into the code, and ensure that that's worked fine. And so you can see that, yeah, it's broken it down into sections, which is nice, so you can understand what bit of the code is doing what. Makes it easy to troubleshoot each section as well. So yeah. Yeah.
Oh, so, nice. That's good. Nice.
Yeah. So here we have, here's the network of our schedule, and we can see how the different tasks interact with each other. This is definitely a better one. And so then I can, if I sort my tabs out, we can calculate the critical path.
And you can see he's just copying and pasting into his notebook.
Yeah.
You can also be doing that into a Colab, by the way. So you can take from, you don't have to set anything up locally if you're on your home and you want to learn. You can stick something in Marvin, you can get the code out, you can stick it into the Colab. Yeah. Run away completely web hosted.
And yeah, we can see how our critical path has been highlighted. And so,
sorry, can you point out where it is? I can't quite see.
Yeah, you can see the red arrows here. Yeah, moving from our previous one to our new network. And now we will do the centrality algorithms. And so centrality is basically working out which nodes are the most important in our network.
We want to understand what's important, what's key. So I guess what Joan was saying, it's classic one's PageRank, isn't it?
Yeah.
Which was originally developed for web page ranking. So it was assigning importance based on the number of incoming links. But in different types of centrality, degree centrality is the most simple. It's just the number of connections a node has to other nodes in the network. The higher degree of nodes with higher degrees, more central. Then betweenness, which is quite interesting for project delivery because it measures how often a node lies on the shortest path between the other nodes. Closeness, the algorithm assesses how close the node is to all the other nodes. So particularly interesting, the eigenvector centrality, which considers both the node's direct connections and the centrality of its neighbors. So how could this be applying to critical path theory? We could be looking at things like with these centrality analyses, this particular part of the project has 4 dependencies. Well, that's obviously, there's 4 things there which could hold it up, and then you can obviously be looking at I keep calling it a buffer, but I mean the what's the slippage time built in
Flow.
The flow, indeed. So and you can look at all those things. So and algorithmically calculate them. This is obviously a very simple example because we didn't want it taking 20 minutes to run. And you could almost look at the simple example and think, well, I could work that out, because you could. There's not much there. You could sit it down with pen and paper. But when you have hundreds and hundreds of nodes, this is where it comes into its own. This is where it makes a difference. And also, when something changes, you can rerun it and see the difference. You can say which bits are fixed, which bits do have potential to move. It's so dynamic. There's so much possibility with it.
Yep. And I'm just going to switch to our backup one because this centrality thing has not worked quite as expected. But here's something I made earlier. And we can see that the most central node is here, and it's kind of as expected on the critical path, because you'd expect that a node that is most central is going to be critical as well. But if we wanted to elaborate on this and ask Marvin what this might mean, so we can ask what might centrality represent in a project schedule network in the context of project stability, kind of linking it back to our original question. And we'll give it a second. And yeah, as we kind of expected, yeah, we can, the central tasks are going to be pretty important and are going to be the biggest, yeah, very important in terms of predicting the overall stability of the project. So yeah, while this isn't, I guess, like a full, we haven't solved the problem, but we've only been doing this for about 5 minutes, 10 minutes. I think this is probably a good way of starting a hack challenge, thinking about it
Or
in
a
a
work
slightly
challenge.
different way. Yeah, or a work challenge. And yeah, we've built some network graphs which you might not know much about at all. So having something that will write all the code for you in both the project context and the Python context is, yeah, really useful.
It's amazing. Like, for anyone who's been doing this stuff as long as me, I'm constantly amazed by the rise of transformers a few years ago and LLMs. It's just, and generative AI, it astounds me. We hope that from these disparate parts, when we're talking about embrace the code, I think at the beginning I spoke about sort of why Python overall, didn't I? And sort of, it enables you to be versatile in what you do, it enables you to scale what you do, it enables you to do more. So it really comes down to that for you in your work lives, releasing capacity and adding capability as well for you personally. It's just, the world's going this way. Why not jump on the bandwagon? Why not upskill? Because if you're, that's clearly why, you're interested in doing that. That's why you're here. Especially because I don't think, for those who are in the project profession who are worried about IMSs, we did an evening meetup session on this with a debate with a couple of people, which you can go back and watch it. I think it should be on our YouTube. We don't think that project profession is going to be as sort of devastated by this as, say, data analytics people are, for example. We see it more as it's bringing the data science, so there's still data scientists and data engineers building the systems, but we see bringing the data in the near term, bringing the data analytics right to the doorstep of the project professional, and it getting easier and easier as well. So there's a real opportunity to get the opportunity to really turbocharge your releasing of capacity and your increasing of capability. And I find it particularly exciting. We hope that if you are a complete beginner, do go and have a play around with Google Colab. And yeah, feel free to send me questions. I've given myself sort of an hour on Friday to read all the questions and answer them. And I'll try and sort of, I'll do like a I'll try and send out like a sort of one BCC'd email addressing a lot of the stuff. So if people have multiple questions across everything, it answers them. And for us personally, because we're building Marvin, like we'd love it if you want to go and use Marvin in your daily work lives. It's completely free. It's never going to be anything other than free. It's just there for the community, and the more people use it, the more people contribute it, better it's going to be. It's actually going to be upgraded soon. Jonah can talk about this. Well, actually, some of it's the new user interface already dropped, hasn't it, Jonah?
Yeah, I'll quickly show in a
internally.
second. Yeah, so I'll show you what the new user interface looks like. Hopefully, it should be a bit more usable. You can store different conversational threads, so you can jump between using it for projects, using it for coding, have it in different tabs, that kind of thing. And yeah, we're planning to launch an apprenticeship version pretty soon, which is going to be, how great would it be if Marvin knew all the things about just not only the content of the apprenticeship, but also the structure, the KSBs, and the endpoint assessment process. So that should be done soon.
To be clear, that won't be an open source version of a Marvin model, because that's everyone's apprenticeships, and that's how that is where we make our money. That is our business model, and that's what we're using to fund all this free stuff for the community. So we are very excited about it, and we want the apprentices to use it in their course, in their everyday work, and we see the future. Is this the new UI coming up?
So this is the new UI. We've got different conversational threads. You can download screenshots very easily, and we've got all our citations in much the same way. In terms of future plans, we've got we're hoping to be able to use different LLM models, so that may be better at certain use cases, and then we also want to use it for auto report generation and other specific tasks that you could do with having an agent to walk you through.
Sure. Now we've got just around 10 minutes remaining. I think that's time for some questions. I'm going to put up a little questions tab, so you've got our details if you need to email us. I see is there some questions in the chat? Who is it? Erin curating going free for all, Erin? Take that as a free for all. Let me find out where the chat is living.
Yeah, there's some questions in the chat, but then there's also some questions in the Q&A box too.
Oh, I do see the Q&A box as well. Yeah, okay. Well, we should start with the Q&A box as it was there. Do we download Marvin from Google Play Store? No, actually, we'll put a link in the chat and we'll send a link out to everybody after. Jonah, do you have a link handy you could paste in the chat?
Yeah, I will post it in the chat.
Perfect. So, and also maybe post it as a comment on Lola's question as well.
Yeah.
So it's go and have a play, please, guys. And we're quite excited about it. We hope you are. So I'm switching to the questions. Oh, we've also got a couple of others online. We could throw questions unprepared to James or Greg or someone just to really ruin their day. Is this session memory? Yes, it is. I don't know where to look, Erin. So, okay, can Marvin help in generating a schedule with copy paste of project requirements and scope? Can it highlight risks and mitigations if developed schedule is uploaded? In one word, definitely.
Yep. Out of the box, it should be able to tackle these, but we also want to create, I guess, more tailored specific agents for these types of things as well.
Or you can use it if you can learn about creating agents with, if you go away and study how to create agents with LLMs, then you could do it yourself too. But yeah, so Jonah, please, sorry I interrupted you.
Yeah, so in the version that I've been showing right now and the link that's publicly available right now, it's really good at answering questions based on the documents we trained it on. But yeah, the plan is to build out agents that are specifically good at these sort of tasks. So yeah, in short, it does it a bit now, it will be even better in the future.
And I think the important thing to remember is because it is project specific, it's addressing, like Jonah was talking about, CPM is in most web-based cases will be clicks per minute, which most, obviously different in agents like Planner and Risk Manager, etc. Okay, no, Jonah, explain the concept of an agent.
So an agent is a version of the LLM bot that is basically tailored to do a specific task. So it might be walking you through, so you might have an agent that is designed to help you create a good schedule or create a good risk designed to create a good schedule, or it might be designed to do some of the reporting, that kind of thing. And that's what we mean by agents.
And you solve it, and you build that in much where you solve any other problem. You get your problem that you want your agent to solve. If you look up some prompt engineering and stuff, that'll help you get going. You record the conversation history. You find some way to measure the user satisfaction, and you can update the agent's functions, and you iterate to enhance the process. That's one way. There's other ways of doing it too. Actually, that's probably a very crude way. There's also, I just described that way because it doesn't require any access to the LLM weights, so that should be like easier for newer people to handle. So yeah, actually, I must say, when Jonah and I were sitting down to plan this, we probably got a bit too excited about. We probably went in too deep, didn't we? We probably we wanted to show off the flashiest stuff, and we suddenly, that's not the purpose of it. It's those first steps. Deepak's commented that he's just had to go with Marvin, and he likes the way it's based on the sources, such as the frameworks and methods. Thanks for that. It is. I think it's the core. It is the core value of it, and it's part of the core offering of it as well. Yes, and of course, lots of the stuff that's in Marvin isn't available on ChatGPT or anywhere else because it's not publicly available. It's been given to us very kindly by the authors of their books, and whilst you can get insight from Marvin from their books and across the board, if you find them really useful, you probably also at least you got the links to the reference material to the books. You can think I might go and buy their book as well. So I'm sure there's a little bit of self-interest there for them too. We've got 2 or 3 minutes left. Are there any more questions? Doesn't seem like it. Check Q&A again.
A quality check of a schedule. It could help you write code to create this, to do the quality checks. Right now, it won't analyze the P6 schedule from an XCR file natively, but yeah, I think you could definitely use it to write the code to create a Python script that does do that, which is maybe a bit more reproducible as well, and has a few more.
It can help you with every stage of that. Actually, it can help you with doing the quality assessment of your scheduled data, so you know how to weight. So when you're doing your quality assessment of your schedule, you know how to weight the different parts of a schedule. It can help you build time series analyses. So, for example, actually, I did see someone doing some time series analysis, one of the hacks, and they'd started getting going, and they'd started with something like an armor, sort of like just a moving average, and then I think they moved on to a reamer, which is autoregressive integrated movement. What's the I stand for in a reamer?
I'm not sure. Sorry.
It's autoregressive something moving average. Anyway, and then it actually ended up suggesting to them for their data, because they hadn't spotted it, that their data had seasonal patterns. It ended up using SARIMA, which is seasonal arema. So that was quite good to see. So a knowledge they hadn't had they didn't know anything about time series analysis, but they were able to do using Python, which they wouldn't have been able to do that in Excel, for example. They wouldn't have been able to do that with many of the other tools. They were able to do an analysis of their data and extracts seasonal information, which they hadn't spotted through the complexity. And they would never have done that without a combination of LLM plus Python. So yeah, turbocharge. That's where we go from here. Thanks very. Oh, does training LLM agents require skill knowledge? Or in other words, can non-tech savvy? Oh, questions are flying in now. It's okay. We can go a few more minutes. Okay, so I'm going to try and do some of these as I've just seen all these questions. Python. I'm a bit old school and still struggling to adapt to the online learning resources. Personally, I'd much prefer a more human-taught lesson or sorts of guidance. There's some YouTubers out there who do sort of beginner lessons. I can't think of them off the top of my head, but I'll make sure to post them. Erin, we can post a follow-up in the meetup chat, can we, for this?
Yeah.
We'll post that there. There
are also some kind of computer science courses from universities that are also freely available on YouTube as well. So that's, I guess, more of a classical style of learning.
Mm-hmm.
But I think with a lot of these things, it's good to use a mixture. I think LLMs are really good for kind of debugging and so I think using a hybrid approach has really helped me, certainly in terms of improving my coding ability.
Just remember when IDEs stopped me missing a semicolon, and I was delighted. You young kids don't know how easy you have it. Oh, I won't start getting on back in my day. Does training LLM agents require skill knowledge? Well, in terms of you have to go away and learn about it, yes, but it is all like natural language. There's a little bit of like domain knowledge, base knowledge to learn, but it's not that much. I wouldn't say it's a technical skill. It's learning how to use a technical product rather than a technical skill in itself.
Yeah, and the amount of resources for creating LLMs has really increased in the last year, as you might imagine.
Yeah. Check out Mindstone for that. That's pretty good. Although maybe they're paid for courses actually, so maybe go somewhere else. So we've got one here. I've done some nice projects in my master's recently and want to present my presentation on virtual in-person meeting. Can you guys suggest on the same? I don't understand. Integrated. Thank you, Deepak. Integrated for Arima. I don't understand the question. Can we suggest on the same? I don't get it.
Are they asking to present in one of these meetup style things? Because
Oh, okay. I see what you mean. Send us an email. We'll have a chat with you. We have these ones. We have like meetups in the evening, so it kind of depends what it is. But if there's a suitable match up in terms of like subject matter, yeah, of course. We welcome guests, especially in our meetup series. We do welcome. We have guest experts. Last week, I had the pleasure of comparing Dave Belshaw of Rolls-Royce and David Belshaw of Rolls-Royce and Dave Turnbull of EDF espoused lots and lots of wisdom. So if you are around in London, I think on the 19th of July, Erin, am I saying the wrong date?
Yeah, that's correct.
That's the correct date. Yeah, if you're around central London on the 19th of July, come along. You'll meet me in person. I think it's too late to meet Jonah in person. Not that he's not out after like 5 in the afternoon. He just won't be in the UK at that point in time. And yeah, we'd love to see you in person. Cheers, guys. I think we'll wrap up there. Thanks, everybody, and have a nice afternoon. And the cat has, the crazy cat that's been invading has just arrived. So I'm going to go and deal with it. It's not my cat. I don't have a cat. So it arrived at the end, which is good.
Thanks very much, everyone.
Bye-bye.